Hello everyone, and thanks for watching my video again. I am back with a tech video. I think it's been over a month since the last one. And this video is going to be all about my new PC build. Okay? And the reason why I have chosen my hardware for it. So, as always, follow me and thanks for watching. Okay? Okay, as I mentioned earlier in one of my video streams, I was going to do some PC hardware upgrades. And now, after 1.5 weeks, I am soon all done with the installation and fine-tuning progress. The reason for the upgrades are mainly related to have more performance and visual improvements when doing my streams. So let's talk about that first for a while. I had no problem running iRacing with my old Intel i7 4790K overclocked to 4.7 GHz. But when adding multiple programs running alongside iRacing and adding the streaming software OBS, the 4 CPU cores and 8 threads was not enough. On some tracks my FPS were dipping below 40, and even if that is not shown negatively on the stream, the racing experience for me were highly affected. iRacing only utilized 2 cores, but I need more room for additional tasks and space for third-party programs running. For an example, Joel Real Timing needs some high FPS setting to look good in terms of calculating in the timing table and updating cars in the track map. And this program is a must for me. I have always used the NVENC chip on my GPU for my stream decoding in OBS, because I have found out that using the CPU is too demanding in terms of CPU usage, and using the GPU is way better from that perspective. A drawback is that NVENC needs higher bit rates to look good, but nowadays when both Twitch and YouTube have Ryzen their bitrate limits, it is a no-brainer. Also, the service Restream helps out in terms of delivering streams to both platforms at once and taking care of bandwidth and also transcoding different bit rates to the platforms if necessary. As you can see shown in the pictures, I have chosen the new AMD Ryzen platform. I have not tried running the Ryzen CPU as doing the decoding in OBS. I have read that it is really good, but I will continue using the NVENC for my streams, so I can have the CPU resting and being ready for taking care of multitasking things. It is good to have some headroom available. I have not benchmarked iRacing with my new Ryzen CPU yet, but I have found out when racing in practice sessions with around 30 cars, the overall CPU usage is about 10% less compared to running my old Intel i7 processor. And that is with also some additional CPU heavy features enabled, like more anti-aliasing, dynamic track and dynamic tire data, and some shadow maps filters enabled. I will see when going live and streaming the next time how it turns out in regards of performance and visual, but obviously there must be some improvements as I double the CPU cores and the threads. The Ryzen CPU are still a bit behind in terms of 1080p gaming performance, but as I am running iRacing at 3K resolution, 5760 1080, theoretically, the eventual system bottleneck shifts from the processor to the graphics cards instead, so I should be all good to go. Back to the topic and my new PC build. This is what I have done. I have based the new hardware on the highly valuable new AMD X370 platform, and the CPU is a AMD Ryzen 7 1700. I got the CPU paired with Corsair 16GB DDR4 3200 MHz CL16 Vengeance memory with red RGB LEDs, and the motherboard is a GIGABYTE X370 Gaming K7. The cooling aspects of the CPU is done by the NZXT Kraken X62 all-in-one water cooling kit. And firstly, I purchased the Deepcool Captain 240EX, but the tubing was too short for having the unit installed in the front of the case, so I had to return it. Afterwards, I do believe the Kraken is a better cooler after all, both in reliability and performance, after doing some more research on reviews around the web. And speaking about the case earlier, I finally got the black Phantek EVOLV ATX Tempered Glass Edition in my possession, and it harmonized nicely with my Ubuntu Revolution Simrig's matte black steel bars, and the tempered glass on both sides of the case have a resemblance to my Ubuntu acrylic tabletops. Nice, but the only little drawback so far is the cooling aspects of the case. The top panel does not allow much airflow, and if you got two fast spinning case fans, the airflow will instead return inside the case. So planning the placement of the fans and the water cooling unit is a must here to optimize the airflow. Running just air cooling is no problem, but using water cooling radiators it can be more demanding. Thankfully, we got some great YouTube channels out there doing the job for us and answering our question in details that we think we are alone to have, like magic. After comparison the GPU and the CPU temperature measured from my previous case and the new one, I got it all worked out for the better finally. I have been in contact with Phantek support about the replacement top panel with better airflow, because I have seen some top panels with more vent holes on sales on the internet. The support answered that they had replacements part, but the one that they sent me later on was the same as the one I already had. So, a bummer in information here. On to the result of the build and a closer look at the components. First the memory, and the reason for choosing the Corsair Vengeance memory was the good compatibility with the Ryzen platform, the speed of the memory and the RGB goodness in red that adds a bit more bling to the whole system. The Ryzen CPU likes faster memory, and running these on 3200 MHz 24 hours a day are no problem. The motherboard is a GIGABYTE, as I mentioned earlier, and as I have been an owner of GIGABYTE motherboards in the past, I really like them. Especially the many USB ports available that are necessary for me as a sim racer for having all my peripherals connected. The creative onboard sound solution, the dual Ethernet ports, and the simplicity of overclocking, and also the RGB function and lighting on the board do look really nice. I have the Kraken radiator in the front, and the two 140mm fans are mounted in a push configuration, so both cooling the CPU and handing as an intake of air to the whole case. As exhaust fan I have three 140mm NZXT FZ14 fans with red lighting, and one is in the back and two is on the top. These fans are mounted with small rubber bushings to eliminate unwanted vibration, and the speed of the fans are controlled by the case PWM hub and the current CPU usage. The overall noise of the system is slow at idle, and when the fans are ramping up at load it never reaches the levels of being too noisy. The GPU is a GIGABYTE AORUS 1080 Ti, and I have done a separate tech video about that card previously, so go check that out for more information if you want. The power supply is EVGA SuperNOVA 1000 watt G2, I use a Samsung Evo 250GB SSD for the operation system and the installed programs, and a Western Digital Red 2TB hard drive for storage. I got 4 FOBIA LED Flights high-density strips lighting up the case both on the bottom and the front sides. As the case have tempered glass on both sides, the cable management took some hours to get right, because I could not just stuck and hide the cable net somewhere. Everything is shown, so no shortcuts done here. The Phantek PWM hub is shown in the middle, and my hard disk storage drive are mounted at the bottom, and as you could see previously, the SSD is mounted on the other side, even if there are some mounting brackets on this side as well. The red GPU cable are default from EVGA, and I have preferred black ones instead, and those can be bought separately, but I'm not changing that at the moment. It is okay with the red ones, I guess. Perhaps it is a good thing that something stands out. I overclocked the Ryzen 7 1700 CPU to running at fairly high 3.8 GHz by going into the motherboard's BIOS setting and simply just raising the CPU clock ratio to 38 and the CPU V-core to 1.350 volts. I then activated the XMP profile for the memory that dials in 3200 MHz automatically and the right voltage required. The bump in performance, I believe, is enough for me, and after doing some stability tests running IDA64 and measuring the system temps, it was all green hills. The CAM software that comes with the Kraken 62 is very useful with all its different monitoring features, and also one thing especially, the control of the unit's RGB lighting. So let's finish this off by showing the system up and running and all the red RGB LEDs flashing and moving around. I am very pleased of the result of the build in terms of performance, stability and aesthetics. The Kraken 62 RGB lights are flashing like a pumping heart in the middle, and the red theme of the build I think is very race looking. There you go, my new PC build and sim racing engine. For more information of my whole sim racing rig, what peripherals and software I use, please take a look at my other tech videos on the channel or reading the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, I see you in future iRacing related videos.